What up, nerds? Welcome to another cartoonish episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 311, recorded on Sunday, March 21st, 2021. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the winner of the March poll pick, which was Wicked City from 1987. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up, man?
Mush, mush. Mush, mush. How's it going, buddy? You guys ready to talk about some pornographic material?
Yes, very much. Animated pornography. Hey, that bump actually applies, the mushy mushy bump.
I know. They're actually regionally appropriate. I can't wait to review our big review of Giant Jugs for Senpai 99. It's going to be great.
Totally. Last but not least, calling in from Jacksonville, Florida, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
What up? It's your boy, Spider Stains. Boys, we got some interesting yabos this week.
Interesting.
And stains.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. There's quite a few stains in this
Fascinating stains in this film.
Oh, my lord.
Spider titties. I don't know about it.
Rob, what movie is it anyway?
Wicked City?
Wicked City. Did you already say that?
Yeah,
I fucked that up. It's all good.
Wicked City. All you people out there that voted for this movie, I wonder why. You did it.
Well, we put it out there, adult animation, true. And the people brought it. Yeah. This shit, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, I guess. But yeah, it's an experience. This movie's a vibe. Before we get into it, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick, though. Here is another reminder. Our April poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website, and if you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this April. The theme for April is Frights of Spring, and the three movies to vote between are Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978, Troll 2, and The Wicker Man from 1973.
Bob?
What's up?
How those numbers looking? Still the same?
Actually,
pretty steady.
They're not the same.
All right.
I know. They usually trend in a certain way and stay that way, but actually The Wicker Man has recently overcome Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Whoa. The Mang on top.
When the Mang comes around.
All right.
The Mang comes around. That's fantastic.
Wicker Man on top. Okay.
Wicker Man on top. It's still a pretty close grouping of all three, actually. So there's enough people left to vote that it could swing it any which way, but Wicker Man's on top currently.
That is a surprise.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you get all of your votes in before the end of March, and we'll see who is the victor and what we're going to be talking about in April.
Cool.
Also in Patreon news, we have a brand new mini-cast that dropped. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to Patreon exclusive content. We've got close to 40 mini-casts up there now. Most recently, Juice, you were talking about a show called Sweet Home, right?
Yeah, that's that Korean show that came out like December, and it took me a while to get through it. And then we've been holding on to the mini cast for a little bit. It's a Korean show on Netflix, about 10 episodes. They're an hour long, and it's kind of got a Resident Evil vibe, and kind of the stuff that inspired the show actually inspired Resident Evil. So it's got that kind of vibe to it. It was pretty cool. So yeah, if you watch that, or if you're interested in watching it, brand new mini cast out talking about that show.
Dope. For the final bit of Patreon news, we got to give some mad shouts outs to, we got not one, but we got two brand new Patreon supporters.
Brand new. And why, Bob? There was some big news on Patreon today.
Yeah, we dropped the You Pick the Flick tier, and there's only 5 spots per quarter, so they tend to go pretty quickly. They sold out in about 7 minutes today.
We even dropped it at a random time. There were 5 people. What? More than that.
Yeah.
That were watching.
This is very much the scene from Audition where the lady's sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring as a person rides in a sack nearby.
Whoa.
That's what I imagine our fans who got the spots were doing today.
Basically. But big congratulations to everybody that did nab a spot. Be considering what movie you want to pick for us to review, and just shoot those over to us, and we'll go ahead and throw you guys in the queue. But because of the You Pick the Flick tier, we got 2 brand new Patreon supporters that signed up. Congratulations to you guys. Big thanks to Alice and Simon H for signing up and supporting us on the Patreon. Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show, and we really do appreciate it. And as is tradition around these parts, we owe you guys the straight chilling salute. To Alice and Simon, here we go.
Slap me in the ass.
Oh, wait.
Oh, God, slap me in the ass.
Oh, slap me in the ass, Alice. Slap me in the ass, Simon.
Simon.
Please do it.
My ass requires red.
One of us has heard those lines before. Those are not new lines to one of us.
Perhaps.
This is... I feel like several lines are being crossed at this moment. Actually.
We're going to cross some lines today. Be prepared.
That's true. The next couple hours are going to be real weird. So
this one's going to be stricken from the record. I'm calling it.
But yeah, that's pretty much all we got as far as Patreon news. Juice, do you have anything else?
Yeah, on the YouTube's a brand new video game review went up this past week. That was talking about Little Nightmares 2. So that's something I've been talking about a little bit on the cast. And now there is a full review up. Reviewed Little Nightmares, the first one before. It might have been the first one I ever did, maybe. But now follow up to that, Little Nightmares 2, which is still a new game. It came out maybe 3 weeks ago. So if you're still thinking about maybe picking it up, or if you've never even played either one of the Little Nightmares, you can kind of check out the review and see what I have to think about it. But other than that, my house is clean.
Awesome. My house is clean as well.
All right.
This house is clean.
This house is clean indeed. And now, a word from our sponsors. Do you guys love film? So do we. No, not at all. This is not the website for you.
I love film.
Do you? Well, in that case, we got the perfect website for you. That's why we got to recommend our friends over at Ghoulish. This is a movie website for the film fan in all of us. Catch up on the latest in horror, kaiju, science fiction, and more with news and in-depth film perspectives that you won't be able to find anywhere else. Don't miss out, and be sure to join their community of film fans today, and that's at ghoulishmedia.com. They also have a whole host of podcasts they produce, and it's really quality stuff. Make sure you check out their podcast and their website. Ghoulish Media, all things Ghoulish Media.
Yeah!
Do it.
Good shit.
Good shit.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you don't like film like me. Hate it.
Exactly.
Every week is torture for Randy.
Oh yeah,
here
this is penance for some unholy sin I partook in some other life.
Yep,
been doing it.
Just
for
make
years.
him watch movies. Just make him.
This is purgatory for me.
I know you hate film. But
this is remarkably similar to what actual hell was like when we went. You remember?
Yeah, we just watched Wicked City.
Like,
over
here's some underworld movies for you to watch. And I was like, no.
Why is everything blue? Why?
That's weird.
So blue.
I was Rob Zombie movies. That's crazy.
And Rob's was The Lodge.
The Lodge.
Lucky.
On repeat.
The Lodge and Creed, just on repeat. And Suspiria
at the same time, layered on picture in picture.
I would be so upset. Whoa.
And then the fourth screen is just C-SPAN at all times. Oh my God.
And all of Bob's beer was flat. That was the real kicker.
That is hell.
You're a monster.
Let's go ahead and jump into the main event. We're talking about Wicked City, and we're going to kick it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right. Wicked City, 1987, directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. That's pretty close, I think. I'm proud of that one.
Look at you. Look at you confirming your own pronunciation.
All right.
I think I did a great job.
Nailed that.
I think that was well done. It stars a whole bunch of people that I'm not going to try. But the plot synopsis is as follows. 2 agents, a lady killer human and a voluptuous demon, attempt to protect a signatory to a peace treaty between the human world and the demon world from radicalized demons. Jenna Wangs, had you seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Randy?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the idea of radicalized demons.
Right. Just
kind of feels like you're already pretty radical if you're doing demon shit, but whatever.
Nah.
I'm a radical demon.
Not in this world. Demons in this world are pretty demure by comparison. I had not seen this movie. I had not been actually, I was not aware of this movie until we decided to do adult animation as our theme for that month. And I believe, Rob, you brought this to the table, sight unseen, correct?
Right, yeah.
So I came into it pretty cold, not knowing, but and just reputationally looking, did a quick Google search on it or whatever. It seemed like it had some decent wheels on it in terms of a reputation. So as far as my recommendation, I would say if you are into anime, you're going to like this probably on some level. I would say that there are some pretty upsetting things that happen in this movie, at least for my tastes, which we'll get into later. But I would say that the animation is pretty great. So if you're an animation fan or whatever, there's a reason to check this one out. It's a pretty loose recommend.
Alrighty. Juice, what about you?
I'd never seen this before either. I wasn't too aware of it in any serious kind of capacity. I don't know. This again, none of us are real big anime people. So I feel like if you're into anime, you've probably seen this. If not, then I would say check it out. I know 80s anime is known for their kind of style and superb animation and stuff like that. And I thought it looked fantastic. It's again, not one you want to watch with your moms, but
if you want a nice mom watch, Requiem for a Dream is always there for you.
You might want to watch this with your daddy, though.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about your father.
No. There's a lot of kinks in this movie.
Yeah. I have a daddy.
Yes, probably no.
There it is.
Some general recommend. Yeah, I think you got to be into anime or animation to kind of get into this movie, but I wouldn't sway anybody from watching it, I don't think. So, yeah. Bob, had you seen this? We know you have it, so would you recommend?
Definitely didn't know what I was getting into when I picked this initially. For the poll, but it's one of those things that I don't know that I loved it, but I don't regret watching it at all. It was very much, it's like an experience. It's just sort of like an oddity. There might be, I don't know, a million other movies out there like this, but for me, I don't know about them. So it was definitely an experience watching it. The animation is really cool. So if you're a big fan of great animation, check it out. But it's the plot's a little thin, and it's just a lot of very shocking imagery. Everybody is just fucking horny in this movie. Real horny. But
it's my boy Dick.
Yeah, it's like a light recommend, I guess. If you're into real oddball animated stuff, then you'll like this. So
if you want to get off and feel like you acquired some knowledge in the process, maybe this is the movie for you.
If you want to get off.
I mean, you want to get off.
You want to get off with me.
If you want to get off of Randy's lawn, then watch this movie.
Because you definitely want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Get off.
You don't know where that lawn's
Randy's
been.
Lawn.
Come on, let's be real.
That's a pretty lukewarm recommend here from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning and get into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
Alrighty. I've got a plot synopsis typed up here.
Ooh, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward, actually.
Okay.
More so than you would anticipate. But yeah, I'll blast through. It's not too long. So yeah, the movie kind of opens up with our main character, Taki, having intercourse with a woman who reveals herself to be a demon. She the applause.
Three cheers for intercourse is all I'm saying. It's good stuff.
She turns out she is from the, quote, black world, which is sort of an alternate dimension that's populated by demons. Taki is part of the, quote, black guard, which helps keep the peace between the black world and the regular world. There's also a peace treaty that's about to expire, and it needs to be renegotiated between the two worlds. Myart is a character that's introduced. He's this 200-year-old mystic who's going to take part in these negotiations for the peace treaty. And Taki, along with a supermodel demon named Maki, are both hired to keep Myart safe and escort him to the treaty negotiations. So the three of them, they're heading out, and along the way, they end up staying in a hotel that has these like magical boundaries that are set up to help protect from demons. However, demons do get into the hotel. They have sort of a fight. Myart is able to escape during all the commotion. He ends up going to a soap land, which is kind of like a brothel, because like I mentioned, everybody's horny. He's horny as fuck. So while he's there doing his thing, he ends up getting injured by a demon, and Taki and Maki are able to save him. They have to take him to a hospital, but on the way, Maki is taken prisoner by some other demons. Taki drops Myart off at the hospital and goes back to save Maki. He ends up finding her being raped by a gang of demon radicals. He fights them all off. The two go back to the hospital and are fired for leaving Myart. Myart stows away in their vehicle as they leave the hospital, and they run into another demon. Taki and Maki are injured by some lightning and wake up in a cathedral where they bang. Shadow, which is like a demon creature, shows up and attacks them with some more lightning, and Myart then reveals that it was he who was hired to protect Taki and Maki, not the other way around. The two were teamed up because their genetics allow them to procreate and make a new race of half-human, half-demons. Myart then fights and defeats Shadow, and the three of them go off to sign the new peace treaty. And that's pretty much the movie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of sex.
A movie.
That's the movie. Yeah, the plot is fairly simplistic. They kind of have a little bit of a Shyamalan reveal twist thing at the end that feels very inconsistent with the rest of the movie.
I wanted to talk about that for sure, but
the character of Myart, I think, is just a bizarre choice. I don't know why they made him the way they made him. If he really is,
I don't know. I think that's like
a protector, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time I'm watching that guy in this movie, I'm very much. I mean, I don't know how much you guys remember or watched Dragon Ball Z. It's one of the few frames of reference I have for anime.
Yeah.
But Master Roshi, that character, that is what's going on here. He's just a horn dog, old piece of shit who also happens to be an amazing fighter in the capacity that people fight in this world, and an extremely important figure. But more than that, in this one, he's like an ascended level of Master Roshi, because he's not only an old pervert who's a master fighter or whatever, he's also just kind of like a self-important bloated asshole. Like on top of everything else, he's not even like all that helpful for the majority of the film, until you find out later that he has been the one that's been saving their asses with this blue lightning spells or whatever. And like you said, there's some inconsistency there, because I'm unsure. Like I'm thinking specifically right now, and I could just be missing something, but there's that scene where Maki is taken, and Taki is going after her, and Myart's like, "You can't leave. Your job is to protect me. What are you thinking?" or whatever. And he's trying to convince him to stay. Why is he doing that if at the end of the movie we find out that he wants him and Taki and Maki to end up together and produce I guess, super babies that are both demon and human at once? And that's his whole end game, but he's like trying to keep them apart.
And also, even when that dude takes off to like go save Maki, when Taki takes off to save Maki, they mention like Mr. Shadow and old Spider Puss. They mention like there's a conspiracy going on. And sorry, Ray's face.
Whole spider pose.
I just like an accurately described creature. That's
they're like, oh, there's a conspiracy going on. But if that was true, like if they're able to find out about some kind of conspiracy going on about that, like, oh, these two people, Taki and Maki, are involved, then their bosses that hire them and put them together would know about that conspiracy. So why the shit would they fire them?
Doesn't make
sense. Or like,
sense.
why?
It's
and
like,
why aren't they?
There's no end game to that, it seems.
And there's also this whole group of people, like they're not the only like black guards or whatever. Why are they just left alone to almost die constantly?
Yeah.
I don't know. If in other movies, I could see a case being made, like with, a lot of stuff that they didn't include a lot of stuff that would have explained that. And so you could have done something like, say, okay, this is how this guy sees the future, my art. So he sees how this is supposed to go, and he has to engineer the situation in such a way that these two people end up in these dangerous situations, thereby bonding them at first as partners, then as lovers or whatever. I could see that argument being made, and maybe that's what's supposed to be happening, but that is not clearly communicated. So I feel like that's me doing the work for this movie.
Yeah. And the dude, like this guy, Meyer or whatever, his attitude completely shifts like at the very end.
Yeah.
To where he even abandons them in the hotel when somebody threatening shows up. They could potentially kill them and is like raping the woman. He bails out the window.
He goes to bang. He just leaves to go have some sex.
Yeah, and he clearly that was, you got to think that, I don't know, maybe it was planned for him to be sucked into the body of a woman that he's hired to blow him or whatever. And but why? None of this follows. It makes a lot more sense that this is just a horny old dude than this is a horny old dude with a plan.
He's also trying to bang Maki for the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Why?
See, my argument again, if I wanted to be devil's advocate on that, I'd be like, okay, so he's trying to be an asshole so that Taki can step in and be the gentleman and try and be a counterpoint to that to push them closer together. Same with having him rescue her from what is essentially a rape while he goes off to bang. But that seems wildly optimistic.
Not just that,
not supported really by the
he shows up at the end and it's like, I'm supposed to protect you. So he says that's his job. Mm-hmm. That is his job. And yet in the first instant, he bails out of the hotel.
And allows her to get banged.
Yeah. And then in the second instance, he gets sucked into some titties and then becomes paralyzed. And she gets raped and taken again. And then he gets the dude fired. Dude. At what point is he protecting them? No point is he doing the job that he proclaims at the end. Didn't you know, you dumb pieces of shit? I'm here to protect you. It's you only doing
protects
that, motherfucker.
Yeah, he only protects them when it's absolutely somebody's about to die. Anything else that can happen to you, though, anything. And that's where we kind of get to the part of the movie that I found really hard to fucking deal with, which is the rape scenes that are going on in this movie. There are several rape scenes in this movie that are very much straight ripped off of dark fucking porn websites and shit. Very much tentacle porn is happening in this movie. Straight up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight up fucking tentacle porn and tentacle rape porn, I should say. That is well beyond my zone of comfort with something pornographic. But I could theoretically, if it's part of the story, fine. We had this discussion on Slack recently with our listeners, where it's okay, yeah, if when does rape work in a movie, and it has to be integral and vital to the story. I don't see that.
Or
here.
character
I don't see that
development,
at all.
yeah.
Or in any way, it has to be vital. It can't just be something tossed in for the sake of a visual. And that's exactly what this feels like.
Well, and they try to spin it that way almost, because I will say, actually, I ended up watching this twice. So me and Bob and some of the guys got together and watched it together, and it was the English dubbed version. And usually when I when I watch foreign stuff, I always try to watch it subbed.
Yeah, I try to find it too.
Because the dub version always makes it more corny. It makes any kind of emotional parts like almost absent. It doesn't fit well with me. And I would rather at least like see the words that are at the bottom and match them with the emotion of the original language. I don't know. I agree, totally. And I did. It was actually, if you want to watch it, subbed, I found it on YouTube, which is nuts with all the crazy yabos and shit going on, but it's on YouTube. So I did watch it again, and I will say at the end they try to again explain some of this stuff away, and the idea that like all of this had to happen so that you two would end up together, like that they like push it away.
The rapes had to
happen.
Like
he had to save her, like in order for her to fall in love with him, he had to be like her savior or whatever. And it's like, there's bullshit.
Even more to that. It is bullshit because specifically Mayart says, well, I couldn't have guessed you guys would have fallen in love or something like that. He was just trying to, he's like not expecting them to fall in love that quickly, which means that whatever they were engineering, like either it worked too well or it just wasn't there. And I just like, it's definitely easier to believe that the latter, especially because these rape scenes, they're not played like, they're like, they're violent for sure, but they're not, it seems very much like it's getting off on the violence to me. That's the read I had on it, is that it was very much like a misogynistic, like, they spend a lot of time watching every angle of this woman getting defiled by people multiple times. And the other part of that is that she also like doesn't like do a lot of like, no God or whatever. So it's not like, so it's almost like not giving an audible no so that people's imaginations can run wild. And it's almost like this, you know what I mean? Like there's some sort of element that adds to somebody saying, no, please don't, that makes it so that people are not sexually engaged with this because they recognize it as the horrible thing that it is. But by not doing that, you kind of allow that safeguard to just disappear. And then like 20 minutes, not even, maybe like 10 minutes after this violent multiple gang rape scene where she is rescued by Taki, they're driving around in a car and they find her a nice dress and she dresses up. She's like, what do you think? And it's like, what are you fucking doing? Like this, she only exists as the idea of a woman. This is not a real person. And that's what makes it even more disgusting to me.
Literally, like right after the rape, after the dude like ends up shooting everybody or whatever, and he rescues her, she's literally like laying there naked. And they're talking and whatever. And she literally says the words like, I'm so happy.
Oh my God.
What is this shit? I was like, I don't think so.
It's like, guys, is empathy just not part of the writing process for these people? What's going on?
Well, and
person just got gang raped. I doubt she wants to have a conversation about how stoked she is or go get a nice new dress.
And I think it's supposed to be, we had like a pretty good discussion. Corey was the one who brought it, that we watched all together, the dubbed version. And he was given kind of like some insight to kind of like the noir style, especially like as adapted by like Japan. Because even if you look at like A Farewell to Arms or stuff, which isn't technically like noir, but when you're talking about that like almost anti-hero man's man type of situation, they always do where the woman is always the victim. You know, like, and anything that the man does is just praised and almost like worshipped by the woman in order to then build that machoism like up even more. You know, not only did he save her, but then she's so happy that he's there and she's worshiping his actions.
Yeah, I mean, he's earned the right to her affections by saving her from a piece of shit that's doing this to her. And you know, like mean, I would imagine there's some gratitude involved, but there's also a human being involved, or well, not in this case, I guess, but there's also a person, like a sentient person who, just went through one of the most traumatic experiences a person can go through. And it just seems like pretty dismissive for her to be like, oh boy, I just got saved. Let's get dresses.
Yeah. And then that's part of like the almost like juxtaposition of it too, is because the woman has to show the more affection and the man like doesn't. Even in this movie shows like almost no emotion
it's
towards her. He'll say like, I'm gonna go save
you're a pretty good fighder, and just like it's always coy things, and she kind of does that very too cold. At first, and I was fine with that. Like I was like, okay, so yeah, like, and I also didn't see any romantic spark between them at all, like pretty much throughout the film, except where it forced itself to be there. Like there's no like it's hard to see two characters fall in love when one of them is a cardboard cutout of a person and the other is not that well developed in themselves. Like I don't know much about Taki even beyond the fact that he's a bit of a womanizer and he's decent at his job supposedly, and he like just what his job is, the bare facts of his life. So to get an idea of why these people are compatible, like it makes sense that they would respect each other as partners, and I kind of wish that was the film that they went with, but I mean, at least for the sake of the journey or whatever, the believability of it, but it just really didn't. It does kind of call back noir, because there's always that thing like the villain brutalizes women, the hero saves women from brutal people, and because of that, the hero gets to be with the girl that he wants to be with, and that girl is always the most beautiful girl of all time, which is explicitly stated in this film.
Literally stated, look for the most beautiful woman.
Why is there a supermodel demon? Like that's such a silly concept.
That's what I wanted to bring up too. One of the biggest problems I have with this movie, like even outside the rape stuff, which was like disturbing, I guess since it's animated, it's like somewhat more tolerable, because I usually almost can't stand it. Like I've still never seen like I Spit on Your Grave. I mean, we've covered like revenge and stuff like that, but one of the biggest flaws, if we're able to step back and like almost say like, okay, yeah, there's rape in this, we kind of have to deal with it, but the world building in this is pretty terrible in my opinion, like really fucking loose, especially for as much as they try to throw at the wall and have you like, the whole premise is that there's this peace treaty between these two worlds. We don't see the other world, and anything that comes from the other world is not consistent in any manner. And the things just happen, and they just want you to accept that it's because they're from the other world. But none of it is consistent in almost any kind of way. I think the world building in this like movie is shit. It's pretty much
shit. I don't know if I fully agree with that. And to me, like there's definitely a looseness. I'll definitely give you that. And you can write, like in my mind, like, okay, these are supposed to be demons. Demons are shapeshifters, so they can use whatever shapeshifty weapons they want. But there's not a whole lot of ground rules for like what kills a demon, what, like all those things. They lay a lot of like pipe down in terms of
lay a lot of pipe.
The relationship. Yeah, lay a ton of pipe in this movie.
Ooh, that sounds like a hot Friday night.
But yeah, so this they do a lot of groundwork in terms of like the relationship. So this is like if you had Game of Thrones, except all the characters were just pawns on a chessboard, like the opening of the show. They don't actually have characterizations, or they have very loose characterizations that are only displayed in like a emoticon level of complexity. So you don't really get a sense of anything in like the world building itself. Like I like that it feels like there's a lived in world where we're being introduced to things as they exist right now. And it kind of feels like, people are going home to their lives or whatever. To me, it feels like there's a background for the human side of things. You don't get any of that for the demons. I can understand to some extent why, but it's just, if these demons are able to like shapeshift and do all this sorts of crazy shit, like they just kind of gloss over, like, why aren't these things able to just, kill everybody? Like, why, what is stopping them besides
or just
there's a black guard
or to just effortlessly blend into the human world?
Yeah, like
if you're able to be a supermodel, the most beautiful woman in the human world, like what's the problem then? Like what? Like what's the dealio? And it's,
racism. There's maybe this thing is supposed to deal with racism in some way. I don't know. Like definitely talking about different races and what they, they don't trust each other. Could you love somebody of this race? That sort of thing. And I know that Japan has had its problems with those things, just like most developed countries have had. Certainly ours has had problems with those things. So maybe there's an element of that. I don't have the cultural context to really say that with any authority, though. So for my taste, it just seems like it's really loose rules for the demons, but a really really sturdy relationship of what the characters are, how they're opposed, and what they are doing, or what they're trying, the treaty and all that stuff. They're trying to renew a treaty. We lay a lot of political groundwork. I guess that's what I'm really looking at, and I appreciate that. I wish there was more political nature to it, but it's like taking fucking Power Rangers and putting a political edge to it without actually establishing what the fuck Power Rangers are or how they operate.
But as far as the political standpoint, stuff like that, anything that sounds interesting about this world is just told to us. And I feel like anything outside of that, where they actually show you something, there's no consistency, to the point where it seems like the only reason they're showing you something is to have a cool new scene. So for instance, they're they can't break into this hotel. And then there's lightning and somebody breaks in the hotel. Then they're driving away from the hotel, and then they're consumed by demon time or something. They're well, we can't. She's you might as well stop driving. We can't escape this shit. And it's things just happen because they need a new scene to happen. And that's it. There's no logic behind it. There's no consistent. It's all of a sudden we're sucked into demon time. Shit.
Because demons can do whatever, and we just roll with that.
Yeah, and then she inexplicably shoots blue laser beams at her Yabos, and then the demon time's gone, and you never have to deal with it again. I see. That's one of the things I was mentioning. I brought up on Slack. It's one of the things I have a problem with anime just in general. And I was hopeful coming into this movie because we covered Perfect Blue not too long ago. I really like that movie, and I'm just not into anime very much. So I was okay, I'm excited to see another kind of classic, almost anime from the 80s that a lot of people hold in kind of a higher regard, maybe. But it came back to this problem where the very few anime pieces that I've seen, which isn't a lot, to be fair, but it all kind of falls back on this, they can do whatever the fuck they want, and it happens at any time, and they don't bother explaining it, and then nobody gives a shit. And it's frustrating to me because style can only get you so far. But when there's no stakes, when literally oh shit, we're stuck in demon time. Well, let me now just shoot blue laser beams at my Yabos. Okay. And then the next time, we're stuck doing this thing. It's let me just shoot snakes out of my fingers, or literally whatever they need to do to get out of this new special situation. That's what they do. And that's something I've seen consistently in a lot of animes. It's literally you can just do anything you want to get out of this new special situation, and it's just kind of accepted. I don't
I don't think that that's a universal statement for all anime, and not from what I've seen, certainly. But I will say that holds true for the most part with this. And I also will say that, I'm a David Lynch fan. If I have to, on some level, accept that sometimes style or tone is its own reward, the experience of experiencing a certain feeling just as you feel it, and just passing through that feeling and allowing it to wash over you. I get that, but that's sort of that's very elevated and separated from what this movie is, because this movie is an action adventure at its core. This movie could be a Saturday morning anime or some shit. It's just got a fuck ton of really grotesque violence and really grotesque sexual situations that obviously aren't good for kids. So, I don't know. To me, it's like trying to infuse a childhood property with really dark shit. And sometimes that can be fun if it's done tongue in cheek, but this doesn't feel tongue in cheek. This feels like a sincere attempt to make a riveting story, action adventure story that happens to include all these things and doesn't happen to explain any of it. Like you said, there are no stakes in this. So how is it an action adventure? Action adventures don't work that way. Maybe an experimental movie could work that way. And maybe on some level this is, but this movie positions itself as a hero arc. Like there is a story at play here about a guy going through hell and back, so to speak, and getting his just desserts and all that shit. So when you have that and you have no stakes, they die in this movie and they just get brought back to life. Like blue shit shoots out of people's chests, like webs shoot out of a lady's vag. All kinds of shit's happening, and it's not really discussed. It's not really like, it's just sort of is. It is, like you say. Yeah. And in this movie, I think it's a problem for sure.
I think for sure this movie almost strikes me as, like, obviously the animation comes first and the story comes later. I feel like somebody sat down and had like a whole list of like shots, like crazy images in their mind. They're like, that'd be really cool to put these sequences in a movie. How can we make that happen? So let's come up with some sort of like half-baked plot to string these like crazy sequences together that I have like lying around in my brain.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's like shocking imagery, and it, like, you know, the movie opens up with the dude banging a spider lady and like her vagina has teeth and tries to eat him, and that's wild and crazy. But like, if you don't have a story that's gonna like prop these images up and make it compelling, then it's nothing more than just a string of bizarre images, you know. And like Justin said, that only gets you so far. Style only gets you so far.
In that case, like I was interested in like the spider lady situation because it's like the first thing that happens in this movie, and it could lead to something really cool. The way they set it up, where she's not actually killing him, but she got what she wanted out of him, and that's really interesting to me. I'm like, okay, so what's she want from him? What is his importance to her? Why did she choose not to kill him? Who does she work for? What does she do? I was interested in that, but you're right though that like especially with the sexual scenes, like there's no reason. Like think about that scene in the hotel where I keep forgetting, Maki is getting raped by her ex-lover. There's no reason for that to happen within the story. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know what their relationship is. We don't know anything except that like what they tell us in the scene as this is happening to her, just so that like, is it just so Taki can come in and shoot the guy? Because they linger a long time for that to be the end goal.
Yeah.
Like, so obviously the end goal is the animation of that scene, and it is to watch her get raped.
Well, and she ends up almost like saving herself, because then her hair does this crazy thing, which again is just this brand new thing that we've never seen and never see again. Helps her get out of this situation. Her hair just like goes wild and traps this guy, and then like Taki comes in and shoots him. So yeah, it's like, why did she have to wait till all her clothes have been removed and stuff? And so, but I want to talk about this. We had a pretty interesting discussion too. And I wanted to kind of bring it back up because I think there's like a sexual tone that needs to talk about like outside of the rape. Because there isn't a whole other sexual thing going on here with like the spider lady. And like Bob, one of the first things we were talking about, like when the movie was finished, is Bob was like, what did you say? You're like, this movie was made by like a really sexually repressed person, or like from a sexually repressed culture.
Just made by an incel.
Felt like it would have come from a sexually repressed culture. Yeah, because the movie is so hypersexual.
Sure. And that's something we had a cool discussion about. And I wanted to talk about that because like, so outside of the rape, which mostly happens with Maki, which I feel like they're driving a lot at because of the end game of what's supposed to happen with Taki, where he's supposed to save her. And so that seems like the ultimate like disgrace to her that he can save her from, which is terrible. I'm not like justifying it anyway, but trying to wrap my mind around it. But then there's this like spider lady thing that like hangs around by a string that shoots out of her vagina. It's got teeth and stuff, and all kind of her yabos are out. So
crazy shit.
And yeah, some crazy shit. And so I want to talk about that because it's like, you know, we do the Hotline Kinks, and, you know, Bob's got his, you know, daddy kink, and we all got our things. And
yes, I do.
Yes, I know exactly where we're working up to here.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, everyone's got kinks. Ralph's got his daddy thing. Randy's, you know, got some kinks.
I love ass to mouth.
I mean, there you go. I mean, so it's...
Hey, put that brown stain in my mouth.
Everybody's
that was the longest wind up ever.
But But I wanted to touch on the idea that I had an alternate perspective potentially of. So even I was talking about watching like Onibaba earlier this year, and Onibaba is like an older movie that's highly regarded, and yabos are flying crazy out through that movie. And so Japan is a type of culture that doesn't view just not crazy spider-lady vaginas, but just general nudity and general sexuality is not as taboo, especially even like in arts and film and book, as it is here. So even like a film like Onibaba, where everybody's got their yabos out and everybody's just having sex more freely, would be like not as like high art as it is here. You know, and even was it like somebody, maybe Mikey or somebody said like, well, yeah, even the first nudity scene in America was technically Psycho with the shower scene, even though there's no actual nudity. Right. And so, and it's attached to that horror realm. It was more schlocky. It was more like low brow even back then. So, but if you take that, what do we do well? We do violence well here in America. It's okay. We sure do. No, I know, and so even old movies, Westerns, people are shooting each other, bows and arrows, they're scalping. So as our history with media progresses, violence gets more and more extreme because like you're always looking to capture the audience. You're always looking to one up things like that to where you get to a point to where like movies, like I know it's not an American movie, but like Brain Dead is the one I kind of brought up. Or even if you look at some of the schlocky 80s stuff where it's all about how much gore can you pour out? How much buckets of blood can you pour out? To the point where like if you took that perspective from a country or a culture that's not used to violence to that extreme, we think of it as almost like funny, like, ha ha ha, look at this dude cutting up all these zombies with a lawnmower or shit like that. And there's bucket, like so much blood. And we think it's very funny and entertaining. But if you're coming from a culture where violence is not prominent like that, then that would probably make you very sick or physically nauseous. And you would wonder, like, why the fuck would anybody watch this shit? Like, what is wrong with people where they think this level of violence is acceptable or so funny?
You're arguing just like the cultural difference where violence is to us what sexuality is theoretically to Japan.
Exactly, where sexuality is more normal. And so as things progress and as you try to get more edgy, well, then of course you incorporate those things that are normal to cinema to that edge. So now you have a Spider Woman who has teeth in her vagina. And we see that as like, how fucked up is that? Like, oh my God. But to them, it's almost like a natural progression because of this particular style. And because sexuality is a lot more prominent in their just general film and media.
Like, I mean, there might be something to that. I don't have the cultural context to really know what a Japanese fan of this movie might think about the sexuality in it. But I can only say that for my part, what's earned and not earned is the difference here for me. Like for any of these any film really, because this, like, okay, think about the story, and this is what bothers me more than anything. Like the visuals, I can get past the visuals. Like I watched a Serbian film. I've seen horrible shit. Yes. And I don't like it, but I can understand there's a cultural context in some cases, and I can appreciate that. Like in Europe, it's like yabos are flying everywhere too. But you're not always necessarily facing a situation where, and I mean, this is widely spread, so you probably are in several cases. But in this movie, you have a hero who is the point of view character named Taki, and he's a badass, and he's an anti-hero, and he can whoop ass, and he is tricked by a demonic woman, first thing in this movie, who steals his seed to do unknown things to it. And then later, he meets this woman who he doesn't trust because she's from this other side of the tracks, but they're partnered up, and he's impressed with how she works, and he has to save her from horrible situations where she doesn't really get a personality or anything about it. This is rote misogynist shit. Like, this is not necessarily like the rape itself is not necessarily the it's not inherent misogyny to show rape in a movie. Lots of movies show rape, and it's not always necessarily against women. It's not always, done, haphazardly. But in this movie, it is, and it's in service to a storyline that reinforces that women are either demons who steal your seed, or they're virtuous women who you have to rescue from other people trying to steal their virtue. And that's just like, it's the 80s. So, Lord knows we had our own share of this shit, and every culture in the world's probably had some share of it. That's the thing that bothers me, like to my core, really, is just like this feeling of like the women here it's the woman in the fridge thing. It's, they're placeholders. They're just like MacGuffins in and of themselves more than they are characters themselves.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
The original reason I said that this movie felt like it came from a sexually repressed culture, maybe that is not the case, but just specifically talking about like Japanese media, I know that penetration is not a thing that you can see in like pornography over there. Like, it's censored. Yeah. They do actually censor some things, even if they have like a lot of nudity in like their normal films or whatever. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know. I only watch a few Japanese movies in my life, but that might give an animator a reason to like linger on this crazy tentacle rape scene in this movie, and like you really see the penetration. You can't see it elsewhere, so maybe that will give, I don't know, somebody a reason to watch this.
Well, and that's one of the problems I have, though, too, because this movie came out in 1987. And to be honest, I don't know. And I think that's part of the thing and one of the things when Bob said that, I was like, one of the reasons I felt the need to defend it was because it's almost a meme at this point. Like, even talking about like Japanese pornography where they can't show penetration and stuff like that, of like, Japanese people don't have sex. They're like super perverts and they have all this crazy sexual media and stuff like that. However, I don't even know, and maybe it was, but I don't even know if that was the case in the 80s. Like, I don't know if they had that rule about not showing penetration in the 80s. And so this is a movie that's like 1987 is a long time ago. And I don't know what their rules or even what the stereotypes were set around Japan at that time. So that might not even be correct. It might be, but I don't know if it is or not.
I mean, no matter like even in Japan, there's like a level of decency, a level like an MPAA of sorts, that watch over the shit that people are able to consume and who can consume it and that sort of thing. For better or for worse, that's a thing that exists in most countries, most established countries, like that. There's some sort of morality involved, some sort of moral idea or cultural morality that is reinforced through, government or social entities. And it's going to be different in different countries. So it's tough for us to say. We're really ill-equipped to be talking about this subject, actually, for this movie. So I apologize to our listeners for not having like this cultural context out of the box. We're just having to search our feelings on this thing. So if we're being foolish about it, then by all means set us straight in our voicemail. We love to hear a little bit more about it from people in the know. But, to my taste, this feels like rote misogyny in terms of the story arc. It feels like Juice said, loose world building. Even though I like the political aspects that could be worked in, they don't really play with that as much as they play with the sexuality. Everything is an ends, like Rob said, to a means. And the ends is seeing somebody get raped by tentacles. And that to me is fucking horrible. So I can only kind of react based on that gut instinct and what little information I have otherwise.
So I think just on a quick Google search, it looks like pornography was censored by this Article 175 of the Criminal Code, which was put into effect in 1907 in Japan. So it's been around for
1907? Good Lord.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is like, there's like sexuality is like, it's a really fucking complicated thing, as if that's not clear enough. And like, there's shit like in European history where, the reason that, God is always adamant. There's so many depictions of Adam and Eve, for example, is because that gives you a biblical reason to paint a naked woman and have people look at a naked woman, which they can't otherwise see outside of, their real lives. There's no pornography is not allowed, but you can show Adam and Eve, or you can show, like this is like, these are the workarounds people have. People always have workarounds. They always push those limits, however they're enforced. So, I mean, I think that there's some merit to that discussion. I just, like, in Japan's case, it's kind of tough to say. If it's been around since 1907, it's safe to say that, you know, whatever's happening in this movie, the question is really how accepted was this sort of violence and sexuality within the culture at the time, which I guess is unknowable to us unless we hear from somebody.
This could be an outlier, you know, like,
could be,
but who knows? We certainly do not. Let us know if
the thing is, like, we're bending, we're doing jumping jacks here to try and dance around. Like, we don't want to condemn anything because it's art, but at the same time, like, it really repulsed me. Like, well, that's the thing. Like,
and that was it really was from my perspective of, like, it really was touching on the Spider Woman. I think, like, the rape was bothersome to me too. And I think, and where my idea was coming from, especially hearing Corey talk about the ideas of noir, I was like, okay, well, that's their edgy spin on noir because the man has to save the woman. And of course, it is very misogynistic. And so I was like rationalizing in my mind, like, okay, well, if they're already comfortable with sexuality and this movie is already stylized in extremes, we see extreme violence, and they're already accustomed to sexuality and they're adapting those noir themes, well, then that could naturally lead you to these things. Whereas I was seeing with the Spider Woman, like, that's just the natural progression of sexuality being more open and, like, accessible in media, and that being the stylized version, like I was talking about. So kind of like trying to put all those pieces together is kind of what I was trying to work through in my mind. And again, I don't know if I'm correct. I was just almost like trying to play a devil's advocate, at least.
America finally got there, man. Like, with like the spider sexy stuff, we just had to wait for Danzig to make a fucking movie.
Thank you, Danzig.
Fucking Veronica. That fucking Spider-Man.
God, yes, come with me.
We will.
Is so terrible looking. Watch that. That's a double feature right there. Wicked City and fucking Veronica.
Treat an Oscar, baby.
Oh my God. These new bums.
But yeah, so this this whole thing, like, to me, like, the Spider Woman, in terms of, like, sexuality purely taken as, like, an aesthetic choice, the Spider Woman, I think, is really effective. Like, that whole scene and, like, the political aspect to it, to me, made it somewhat, like, not acceptable necessarily, but, like, made it make sense. Like, okay, so this is a Contra agent trying to, like, get some vital information from this guy, and she's doing it through sexual means. She's a femme fatale. Femme fatales on their face are not, like, inherently bad character types. They're not bad archetypes, but it's how it's used and how it's composed in contrast to the males in the movie and then the other females in the movie. And the only other female in this movie is repeatedly raped and has her virtue removed from her as a method of making her fall in love with the lead character, which is gross. To me. So that's really where that those problems stem from for me. So, like, taking it as a whole actually causes it to be less stomachable for me, as opposed to taking it on that scene alone. And that's kind of what Rob, I think, was pointing out, is like, scenes are taken as their own entities, just in individual moments. They work on some level a lot of the time, like, not the whole movie, but, like, a lot of them work pretty well. But it just doesn't work cohesively because the rules change constantly, like Justin says, about how these characters operate. And then, like, on a storytelling level, we have all those problems we just discussed. So I don't know. I have problems with the movie, but, like, we should talk about some positives too.
We should. And a lot of this, it's hard too, because a lot of it is in context. And unfortunately, we don't have context, like, not full context. And it's dangerous sometimes when you take things out of context.
Fill me up, Diddy. Yeah.
Wow.
Saw that one coming as well.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Some people aren't afraid of themselves, Justin. You know, we just got to get in there and do our thing.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry that you aren't comfortable saying this as often as you should, but
people like,
live your truth. So, Jew. Live your truth. Get that incest if that's what you need.
I just support it. I don't love it like some people.
Oh, okay. There's a key difference there. I just support murder.
Just the advocator, you know.
Oh yeah, I just advocate for murder. I don't actually do it, so it's all good. Anyway,
yeah, we kind of need to land this plane. Do you guys?
Okay, let's talk positives real quick. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Or do we want to do it in our sum up? We can do that too.
Yeah. Let's do it in the sum up because we're already about an hour in. Let's. Juice, why don't you kick us off here? Out of 5, how do you feel about Wicked City?
Okay, so yeah, I will do some positives. I like the style. I like the animation. The way they did coloring this. I like the blue shadowing almost with like the red highlights that they would do a lot through this movie. I really like that. It looks cool and very stylized and a cool like neo-noir thing, you know, like if you're trying to build off that noir where it's a lot of times like based in black and white and stuff and switching it with that blue and red. I really like that. The action scenes are really like choreographed. If you're able to like remove yourself from like the terrible things that are prompting these violent actions, which most of the time it is sexually based, unfortunately. I like the physics of like when the kickback of his crazy gun, like it's not just a normal gun and they rationalize. I like those world building aspects and I wish they had fleshed more stuff out like that because it wasn't something they were having to tell me. Like I knew this guy had a special gun. He kind of mentions it, but he didn't have to explain to me like what the bullets were or anything, but just a huge kickback and everything and how it can actually kill demons. I like that. That was cool. And I like the physics of it and I like seeing it. A lot of the design of the demons. One of them was almost like a thing rip off where the head came off.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
But even like the tentacles when they weren't penetrating anybody, like one where they're just like flailing around and like attacking the guy and like just kind of the giant teeth that wrap them up. They were just cool, unique designs that kind of got my mind racing like, oh my God, what is this world like that they're not showing me? And I was okay that they didn't show me. I just like didn't like that it was not very consistent from scene to scene to scene. I got that they were shapeshifters, but like even their abilities, like that one guy, it was like cool to see in the scene. So I get why they do it. But the one guy who shows up at the hotel who screams and just like blows this dude's arm off. Like what? Why was he able to focus his scream specifically on that man's arm? I don't know. It was just
that was an arm specific scream. You know, certain.
Yeah.
So it's the tone. It's the vibrato.
Anyways, I did like aspects of this movie, and when I watched it the second time, the subs definitely made it better. And clearer. I will say that the story was clear to me on the second watch, one, because I kind of already knew what was going on, but seeing the words at the bottom, like with the translation, it helped a lot to me. They actually mentioned the word demons and just like different things. I don't know. It was better to me. That's how I prefer to watch stuff like that. Overall, I did not love this like I did Perfect Blue. I think I went into it with a little more hype than I should have. But I was okay to watch it again and got a little more from it the second watch. I don't particularly want to watch it again, but I think I'd be okay if I had to. It's got some cool stuff. It's got some fucked up stuff. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, not well written from a story standpoint, in my perspective. So I'm going to end up at a 2.5.
All right. 2.5 from Juice. I'll slide in here real quick.
Okay, Bob, out of 5.
Of course you will.
Wicked shitty. What you got?
Slide
And it also
like
isn't
tentacle.
penetrating you. That's a bummer.
Oh boy, that tentacle is not in me. It's a bummer.
It is a bummer.
Yeah, this movie is like, as far as positives go, I think in my limited experience watching like anime, I think this looks like really, really cool. I really enjoyed the style of it. The coloring of it. The music was actually pretty cool too. It seems like they composed like several like full-blown original songs for this movie. So I like the look and the sound of it. The demons look neat. Like I'd wish they would have given you a little bit more insight to like what the fuck they are and like where they come from and why they are. But it all just like stylistically is really, really cool. Probably something like if you made a television show out of this where you could like dive a little bit deeper into the world, I think that probably would have served the story a lot better. But then, that brings me to the negative side of things, which is the story is real thin. And I think it only exists at all because you got to have some sort of a story to fill, a 90-minute movie, right? So let's just kind of string these two characters along, and we'll see some real fucked up stuff on the ride here. It just feels sort of like half a movie, like technically and stylistically, it's really, really entertaining and enjoyable, but the plot is just really not there at all for me. So I'm going to give this a 2.5 as well. Randy, how do you feel out of 5?
As expected, I kind of have just like a similar variation to what you guys said. So positives, it's going to start with that as well. The animation is really cool. I think that like, especially for its time, from what I've seen of that era, this is like pretty elevated shit. Like this is really well done. Like the body horror stuff is great. They clearly take a lot of inspiration from The Thing and from Blade Runner with its coloring and shit like that. And maybe even from, I was thinking of Suspiria at a few points where it was like bright red throughout. That really, that just came out of my mind when I was watching it. There's clearly a lot of Western influence in this movie. And like Justin said, there's like the noir aspect to it, which is kind of part of the Blade Runner thing too. The aesthetic movie is just really fucking cool. I think that's probably why it's held in such high regard above anything else, I would think. It also has, like Justin was saying, the action in this movie is fucking cool. Whether or not you can justify what's happening sometimes. Yeah. Like in terms of like, what is this? Like, it's like if, one of them, somebody just suddenly in, I don't know, a Friday the 13th movie could Kamehameha and they just didn't acknowledge it the rest of the movie. It's like, why? What? And like, that's kind of the feeling you get with some of these attacks. But the actual choreography of it, the visuals of it, the framing, the blocking, all that shit is great. Really, really good. I think the soundtrack, like Rob was saying, is pretty strong, although I didn't linger too much on it. Like it was strong enough to, to move things along for me. But yeah, it was really just kind of like everything in this movie seems like they took like Saturday morning sort of conflict and tried to infuse it with adult situations and like even the politics thing, that thing that I was most interested in. That seems like somebody infusing politics into Dragon Ball Z or some shit like that. And it doesn't feel fully fleshed out. And the same is true of the sexuality aspect. It seems thrown in there for the shock value, for the titillation. And for my tastes, it goes way beyond the pale with that stuff to be justifiable for those reasons. So, and then like in terms of the story, I just don't think that this story makes a fuck ton of sense. And the stakes are really, really compromised because of that. So it's just tough for me. I don't think that this movie is very much beyond its style and aesthetic, like we were talking about. So for me, as much as, and the thing is, I'm an animator, I love good animation and things like that. I feel like compelled to give it a high score for that, but I had a hard time watching this, and I probably won't be watching it again, even though I would have preferred to watch the subs as Justin recommends. Because that's another critique. The American voice actors they chose for this are pretty wretched, in my opinion. They're very much like one take wonders where they're just getting it done in an afternoon. It seems like, and there's nothing behind it. It's just reading lines. It seems like there's a reason that Cowboy Bebop is lauded for its American voice dubs as being like the exception to the rule, because I feel like this is pretty common to have with anime, like American dubs be so cringy. I gotta say, I've had a flashback of Resident Evil, the original cart, where they had those famously horrendous dubs, or just American voice acting. So yeah, that was bad. Anyway, to wrap it up, I think it's got great style and it's got really good craft, except in every category except for the writing, and some of the shit just really rubbed me the wrong goddamn way. So for me, it's a 2.
Wow, I thought you'd rate it higher than me, Randy.
No, I struggled with this one. They're like, I see a lot of movies, and some of them involve rape, and some of them can be justified. This one, from the jump, never once felt justified.
No,
so
I agree.
I kept lingering on it, and it's tough not to center every discussion on that.
Yeah, and I did not give half star again, just like Perfect Blue for the animated Yabos. No,
good for you.
You're a man of the real world.
I'm a man with the code.
You are a man of the code. We all know this.
With Randy's 2-star rating, that's going to put our aggregate at a 2.3. Let's jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Wicked City.
Certified fresh to death.
All right, ladies and gents, this is our Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to ask these two gentlemen to guess, within the best of their abilities, what the aggregate scores are on Rotten Tomatoes for Wicked City, the aggregates of the critics and users. Or at least I would, except there's a slight issue this week in that there are 0 critic reviews for this list.
Really?
0.
Man, maybe my impression of this movie, I just thought it was like, I don't know. Maybe I just thought it was hotter.
I thought it was held in.
Yeah,
I've seen it like listed among Akira and fucking Perfect Blue as like, as a linchpin entry into, adult level anime features. But yeah, I don't know. Like, and this is where this is the other side of that. I guess that's coming from the audience because there are over 5,000 audience ratings.
Okay.
So it has following. It's just not really, I guess it doesn't have much from the critics at all. I guess because it's an import, maybe there's just not a lot of English language reviews I don't know if Rotten Tomatoes does, Japanese language reviewers aggregates that or not. Anyway,
so it does not have a critic.
There's literally 0 reviews for them to even aggregate from. So there's nothing. Okay. There's no critics consensus because of that. So we're just going to jump right into the user section, over 5,000. Rob, we'll start with you this week. What do you think the aggregate score will be for the 5,000 plus audience members who reviewed this?
I think it'll be generally positive, but not overwhelmingly so, because this movie is sort of a tough pill to swallow. I don't see it being like a mega huge crowd pleaser, so I'm gonna go with I'll take the comedy number 69, please.
Damn it.
69 dudes.
69 dudes.
I wanted the 69 dudes.
You always do,
dude.
Justin.
Now you're stuck being one of the 69. Soju, what do you think? What's your score for this film?
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. I'm like kind of on shaky ground now because I think my impression of it is maybe higher than it actually is with no critic scores. I wanted the 69 dudes. I agree with Bob. I think it'll be on the positive side, but since it's so extreme and like since we saw Perfect Blue, I think Perfect Blue is rated higher, but it didn't have these like extremes that this one does. So I'll go down and say 68.
68 percentile. Well, Soju, I got something for you. Hell yeet Soju this week. He won it by a single point. This is a 67%.
Holy shit.
67.
So close. Almost the ding-a-ling.
Almost. Very, very close. I thought Rob was like, with the 69, with the comedy number, he was already edging pretty goddamn close. But
damn.
You snaked him. You snaked him good. So I actually
Thanks
like
2 p.m. Todd for the old hell yeet.
There are 2 actual critic reviews on here with no quotes available, but there was one with a 2.5 out of 5 and one with a 3 out of 5. I don't know why they aren't aggregated.
Yeah, so that would be a pot, but that would make it 100%.
No. It would. What I mean, I think it has to be like a 3 or above or something.
Oh, is it? Okay, then a 50%.
I don't think a 2.5 is going to cut it. I don't know that though, but what the fuck do we know? We clearly know nothing is what we're learning from this episode.
We don't know shit.
We know nothing. So I'm going to read some user reviews, sight unseen, so bear with me. Usually the negative ones are funnier, so I'll start with one of those. 0.5 out of 5. You're joking, right? Besides a few interesting visuals, this movie fails on every level. It's hard to believe it came from the same director as Ninja Scroll. Totally. Don't know what Ninja Scroll is, though.
Me neither.
Was this guy trying to make soft porn? The premise set for this anime could have used much more than this punchline. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. Now let's read a positive here. Let's see. This anime holds up pretty good. Love the mix of action, sex, and visuals, and the story is solid too. I would recommend, definitely. Yeah, the users are split all over the place on this one. So 67, it's generally positive, as you guys both intuited, but it is not an overwhelmingly positive movie because it's partially shitty. Yeah, there you go. Cool. That's our Rotten Tomatoes segment. Not much more to it this week.
Thank you, Randy. There is no trivia on this movie that we could find. So let's go ahead and skip that and move right into Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
All right, Juice, what exactly is a cooter and why are we hunting them?
Let me tell you, I am going to break it down. Cooter is a character type.
I am not stalling.
I had a mind blank. Cooter is a character type. And a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter has to hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, and the 5 points are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, I think there's going to be quite the cooter hunt this week.
I think so.
Yeah. So, does anybody want to nominate anyone off the bat?
I don't know, man. I kind of feel like the whole movie.
Yeah, the
writers.
The
writers.
Writer, director. I guess like in the movie, the whole like demon squad, I guess. Really?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, they're all very, very much into raping people. So, yeah. I mean, pretty good cooter stock there.
I guess. Okay, so let's. My first actual impression. So let me pose this: is the little guy? What's his name?
The little guy.
So yeah, I would say if what he says is true, then I guess like a manipulation. Off the bat, we know he's a sexual deviant, crazy. So he's got 2: manipulation, sexual deviancy. He's arrogant because he like throws a fit about some shit in the hotel and like other places.
He's got a weird
fucking
look.
Jet airliner be exploded that he could have saved people from.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking
I saw
arrogant.
that coming.
Yep, saw that coming. Sorry, family of 5 that happened to be on that flight.
And then he just grabs an ass.
Yeah, he starts grabbing asses and he gets literally sucked into a titty. I mean, it's all pretty cootery there. Looking at tire.
Looking at Tyre, yeah, Rob said here was the other thing too. I assume he's from the demon world and he's not a shapeshifter and he's not.
He's human. They say he's human in the movie.
How is he human?
I don't know. He's a short little Yoda man. He's a human with
got horns.
Kind of. Yeah, I don't get it either, but that's
I don't know.
At least in the dubbed version, they did say that.
It's not
I didn't pick up on that.
You and I are human, he says at one point.
Oh,
so
really?
We can't do X, Y, and Z or whatever. Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that. Okay.
Which just means he's like a human in the way that weird little like porcelain doll creature is in fucking Dragon Ball Z. What is it? Tien and whatever. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to care what I was.
Okay. Okay. So then, yeah, I guess looking at Tyre because he doesn't look like a fucking human. He's got fucking horns.
Yeah, it's a strange fucking thing to call that weirdo a human on any level. Pathetic is maybe the only thing that he doesn't quite land on. I don't think because he is quite strong. We find out, and that's really the only reason.
His need to bang is pretty pathetic. Like
I would say fact that he had sucked into some titties. If he's supposed to be some master psychic thing,
he could see the plane exploding.
Yeah,
but
and
not getting sucked into a titty.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of pathetic.
I guess that's a good point. Yeah, I think he's hitting some level of each of them, and some of them quite hard. I think though that the demons, like between the sexual deviancy that is readily apparent, their look, obviously, the manipulation involved. They're warring factions of a fucking war. So yeah, they're doing all kinds of things. The problem is they're all kind of one unit. I can't even name one of them. I can't tell the difference between any of them. And so and
there's the Shadow Master and old Spider Cooch. Yeah. Other than that, that's the main squad.
Other than Spider Woman and the guy who shows up, who ends up being the big bad. Yeah. For some reason, we still don't know what his motivating factor is, except to end the treaty. Why? Who the fuck knows? But that's
they're all just extremists. They don't want to get along with humans.
I guess
radical demons.
Radicalized,
dude. Mm-hmm. Sign me up. I don't know the whole thing. The that we've talked about this whole episode. The rape scenes, the sexual shit, with no apparent reason for them to be there except to titillate really twisted minds, in my opinion, is pretty cootery. So to me, I feel like the whole movie strikes me as cootery, and I don't really see a delineation very much between characters.
So
it's a bit of a Cooter movie. Yeah.
Are you telling me it's Cooter City?
It's Cooter City. Sure. let's do that one.
Damn.
It's Cooter City. Yeah, I think we got to book the whole goddamn city and the dark world also.
Yeah. I think old Spider Cooch, she makes a pretty good Cooter, just as a standalone, because she manipulates, because she takes the shape of that chick he was going to date or whatever. Mm-hmm. She's manipulating. Obviously, he doesn't know she's a demon. That's also sexually deviant, because technically he's kind of raped in a way. He doesn't know he's actually banging.
Yeah, he's manipulating. Yeah.
Steals
under false pretenses,
seed as well.
Which we don't know why that's important, right? Why?
Yeah, because later on they discover the whole thing is that he is capable of breeding with demons.
Okay, so they know Maki. That?
Yeah. They know that because I guess they somehow test his seeds.
So she could get pregnant too.
She could. I mean, no, because Maki is also.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay.
Although they don't discover how, they don't tell how they know that. That's something I didn't think about. It's just assumed somehow. I guess because fucking Mayart is just psychic enough to know.
I would say she's got
psychic enough to know. Be wary of titty.
I would say she's got look in attire when she's coming down that string.
Dude, she bursts webs straight from the cooch at one point.
We didn't even talk about how her entire body becomes a giant vagina. We didn't talk about that at all.
Well, was that her? I think that was a different person.
No, it was her, and she's all of a sudden, here's another one of those moments. All of a sudden, she can hypnotize him with her earring.
That's a different woman. That is a different woman. Yeah, because she gets killed. That woman gets killed, and the spider rescues. What's his name?
I think it's the same person.
Well, the fact that we can't tell is not the same.
I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. It's all kind of.
I'm pretty convinced that it's a different woman. But
because they both came back to life. Mr. Shadow Guy and Spider Cooch. I thought they just were more powerful and didn't die from the gun.
I thought she was off as a second stringer, and then she had to take over on his behalf.
Okay, yeah,
that woman who became a vagina got shot by what's his name's gun, and we didn't see any regeneration.
I thought when she flew back from the gunshot, I thought she had the spider legs. That's the only reason I thought that.
I guess the important thing is that
know.
We don't know, but we do know is that this movie's a goddamn Cooter. I say we book this bitch.
Okay,
I like it. The whole thing. Round them up. Looks like we caught him. All right, boys, it's time to relax, kick back, let our hair down. We're talking about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Hey Randy, what you been watching?
Hey Bob. There's actually, in contrast to last couple of weeks, quite a few things. I'll try and zoom through a few of them. I watched the South Park Q special. It was quite enjoyable. They kind of summed up, a path forward quite nicely at the end. And as usual, they pulled very few punches. Sometimes they're on the money, sometimes they're not, just every episode. But I think it was pretty goddamn funny. So points for that. I watched a movie that Becky had recommended, or not recommended. Becky had shown an interest in, called Deadly Illusion, which has one of the women from Sex and the City playing a writer with writer's block who writes thriller novels. And the whole movie, it kind of like shapes itself up to be like a pulpy thriller novel, which, is a good thing, because otherwise the plot is really, really dumb. They hire a nanny to come in who, may or may not be like, fucking her husband, and may or may not be like, creating subterfuge in her life. And without giving away like what the answer to all this stuff is, it's a pretty goddamn it's like reading a pulpy mystery horror novel. And it has quality to match. It's not a great film, and it's pretty silly in a lot of ways. Some of the performances are a little wooden, but it's thrilling enough. Not a strong recommend. I watched the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and speaking of violence in America, Falcon in the first episode of his new show murders many people, and so does Winter Soldier. So many people get murdered. So many. But it is, it's quite enjoyable for what it is. It's pretty much what you would think it is. Like, it's a action thing. It's just a little too murdery, I think, for my taste, right out of the gate, for me to be like super on board with these heroes.
Remember when people were losing their shit when like Batman was murdering people? And
because Batman's whole thing, like I know what you're saying though. Yeah, they don't have the same worries with characters who don't explicitly say that, because that allows, the Punisher's the biggest fucking thing in the world. So anyway, I'm yet to be seen. I feel like Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be an okay show, not quite up to snuff with WandaVision. That's going to set up yet more bullshit for, Joss Whedon or somebody in less trouble to knock down later in a movie. All right. Next, I watched Tread. Have you guys heard of this documentary, Tread?
No.
This is a very fucking interesting documentary. I think you guys would quite enjoy. It's about a gentleman in, oh God, where was it? Dakota, one of the Dakotas. I don't remember. He's somewhere, up northern US, who, you're introduced to. He seems like a genial guy. He's big into snowmobiling and all this shit. But the end of the story is him basically building a tank on the outside of a giant bulldozer and just bulldozing the shit out of his town and trying to kill a bunch of people that he has imagined God wants him to kill.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it is extremely interesting, and they go really deep. It's like an hour and a half. Did he kill anybody? I won't say. That's for you to determine for yourself. But it was I remember the story breaking, but it was like, even in the movie, they're like, well, the day after this, Ronald Reagan died, so there was no more news coverage after this. So it just kind of like fell off the map for people. But so it's an extremely interesting like character study of a documentary, and it's an hour and a half, or 2 hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's not like the Netflix model of like 7 hour and a half episodes to tell you they don't know what's going on.
It is so crazy that like so much wild shit happens in the United States that a man building his own tank and bulldozing his own town isn't something we even are aware of.
Dude, yeah, it is. And the thing is, oh man, I have so many thoughts on this that I can't get into right now. So many thoughts. But
that's just how much wild shit happens.
Dude, people deify he's a small business owner, and when your shit doesn't go his way, his answer is to build a fucking tank.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the only answer, really. God wants it. Anyway, also watched the documentary Behind the Curve yet again, to introduce Becky to it. That's the Flat Earth documentary that came out a few years ago, which is pretty unforgiving and pretty Schadenfreude level of viewing. You get a little thrill from seeing people say and do things that are patently silly, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole. Check it out. If you're at all interested in how people can believe the earth is flat, this might illuminate some reasons why. I'll say that. And then last but not least, I've been watching a lot of Adult Swim little small programming from a man who I know from the Chris Gethard show back when it was on. His name is Joe Pera, and Joe Pera is on Adult Swim doing like these usually 15 minutes to half hour. He has a little bit of a series going, and it's like really funny shit to me. He's like it's like the premise is that he's the squarest man in the world. He's the most like demure, quiet, soft-spoken man, and he's into shit like, I don't know, like he does a whole episode about people who go to breakfast and what breakfast is like, and he'll just talk to, it's really difficult to explain, but it's exceedingly charming and calming. It's like fucking Zen. It's great. I recommend it. There's a show in particular, an episode where it's Joe Pera talks you to sleep and Joe Pera talks you back to sleep, where he just talks and just says all kinds of wild shit that's really, really amusing, but also extraordinarily calming. It's good shit. Joe Pera, check him out. Okay, I'm done.
Tight.
Sorry that was so long.
Nah, no worries, man. Juice, what you been watching?
I watched that Blockbuster, the last Blockbuster documentary. And it was cool to see where Randy used to live.
Yeah.
In Bend, Oregon.
Well, I passed through. I didn't live there. I lived in Oregon, though.
Oh, I thought you did live in Bend. Okay.
No, we passed through on the way to check it out.
Okay, never mind then.
It was a good
Scratch that from the record.
It's a beautiful place, though.
Yeah, it was cool. I liked it a lot. It made me like kind of sad in a way, like people talking about Blockbuster, but it also was very interesting. Like the idea of like how like rental stores even kind of got started and how they had like a court ruling about it and stuff, how like expensive movies were back in the day when they first got released, and like the movie theater or like the movie studios impressions of like why you should pay so much for a movie and stuff. Like they were charging like $100 for a movie because they're like, yeah, you can just show this at your house and 100 people go out. Or not really, but yeah. So that was interesting. I enjoyed hearing that kind of history that I wasn't aware of and wasn't like alive for. And then it kind of made me sad because even, our college days and stuff, man, we did some Blockbuster runs for sure. I mean, growing up as a kid, getting the SNES games and the 64 games and, you guys were telling me all about that, and I just felt it in my soul.
Oh yeah, it just resonated with you.
Yeah,
you
really
got an old soul. Young body, old soul.
So yeah, it was a good watch. So I told you guys I watched that show about the glass blowers that they made that, and I really enjoyed that show when I watched it. And so I kind of got in this like rhythm or just like my routine of the kind of day to day. And so once it was done, I was seeking out other kind of almost like feel good reality shows where people just create shit, like, and just kind of do that. And so I ended up watching an interior designer show where they just like had to decorate interior. And I really enjoyed it. It was British too. So super British. And now I'm watching the British Baking Bake Off or whatever that show is.
Speaking of Zen.
Yeah.
That shit is so a Xanax.
It's so pleasant to just watch people create, and all of those things, the glass blowing, obviously, but like I'm really bad at interior design as far as colors and shapes and textures, and that is not my forte. And now baking, like I don't like bake so well. So it's just cool to see people do like amazing shit that I cannot do. And it's also just peaceful and kind of helps with my day. So, I usually like do a workout while I'm watching like chill reality television.
Interesting. Most people get pumped. You like to zone out, I guess. Let me recommend something to you then, based on what you just said. There's a lot of these channels now, but there's a guy whose YouTube channel is called Primitive Technology, and I'm pretty sure I brought him up before on this channel. But basically, it's like a narration-free, just strict video of this guy. I think he's an Australian guy, maybe New Zealander or something, who just goes out into the woods and will build like a fucking mud hut, like using primitive technology, as the title says. And it is super, super engrossing to just sit and watch. And it, again, is like that total calm of like seeing somebody who's just calmly doing what is really kind of amazing, especially in today's world. And just doing it with the proficiency of somebody who just knows how to do it. Like, it's just really interesting to see somebody make that kind of shit.
I enjoy that stuff, apparently. Like, I really enjoy watching people work and be creative and just do their own thing. And then, like, comparing it to other people's things. And it's not like, one's better, one's worse, but it's fun to be like, I don't know. So I've been doing that and it's been enjoyable. The only other thing, I've been on this whole Zelda kick. And so I've been watching a ton of now I'm getting into Zelda ROM hacks. And I showed Randy one that was one of my favorites, where it took the very first Zelda game, which I had mentioned playing before, and how it's so flat and old and dated, but it still got this charm and very impressive. And somebody took that and essentially made it almost like a link, like a SNES version, like a Link to the Past, and it looks fantastic. I'm gonna try and download it if I can and play it. I think it's pretty much the same gameplay, but it's kind of similar idea that people did with Link's Awakening, whereas on Game Boy, and then they made it look much better. So I love that people do that shit, man. I love people being creative and just. Essentially, I think it's for free, just for fun. I'm going to make this crazy Zelda game look better. It's great.
There's people that have been working on Unreal Engine version of Ocarina of Time for
I've seen the clips from it. Yeah.
That's that crazy. Shit looks amazing.
So, that's about all I've been watching and doing. Bob?
Yo.
What have you been watching? Any baby blues to speak of?
I've been watching a few things. One, Baby Blue. I picked up a copy of Fright Night 2, which I'd never seen before.
Okay.
Came out in the 80s. Pretty solid. Old Charlie Brewster grows up. He goes to college. And Jerry Dandridge's sister is a vampire that rolls into town, and she decides that she wants to try and convert Charlie Brewster into a vampire. So she's working on him doing that. She's got this
You're so cool, Brewster.
Totally. She's got this werewolf dude who stalks around with her, and makeup's pretty solid on the werewolf. There's a couple gags toward the end of the movie where one of the vampires melts. It looks incredible, super well done. Some really solid practical effects. The movie in and of itself is it's a solid sequel. It's definitely not as great as the original Fright Night, but it's worth watching. Sunray did a triple feature this past week of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. They showed one of the movies each night. I haven't seen those movies since the movie theater, when they first came out back in the day. So revisited those, and they're still not really my thing. They weren't back in the day. I didn't love them. They're all right. They just don't hold my attention very well. After 2 hours, I'm just okay, you could cut a lot of this out.
I agree. Which is weird because I'm a fan. I like fantasy things generally, but I agree with you, Bob. They just never have been my thing either.
Yeah, I love them. I don't watch them that often, but those are movies that I definitely those are get shit done movies for me, where I can throw them on and be focused on a task and do both at the same time very easily. And it also takes 2 days to finish them, so it's perfect length if I have a big project on my hands. I think those movies are fucking great. And it's weird that you brought that up, because I also rewatched Lindsay Ellis's takedown of the Hobbit series and how fucking awful those are. If you haven't seen that, you don't have to watch The Hobbit, any of it, to appreciate this. But there's some videos that she put on YouTube that, I don't know, man, so good. It's 1,000 times better than the Hobbit franchise. But I can't. Yeah, I'm shocked that neither of you guys are super into it.
Yeah. Not really my thing. I also wrapped up watching Stranger Things, all 3 seasons. Finished season 3 just a couple days ago for the second time through it. That show is just so fucking good. I love it. I love it so much. Season 3 is still my favorite. I was curious if it...
Really?
I was going to ask you that.
Oh my God.
Justin I think he just realized who you really are.
I love
That's such a sad statement.
Wow. Dude, the monster in season 3 where you get this blob version of the Mind Flayer that's comprised of all these melted humans, that is the greatest monster. I love it, dude. I eat that shit up. All the shit with them all, and the Russians, and I love all of it. It's so much fun. Great show. Looking forward to the 4th season, which I don't know if that's coming out this year. I kind of hope it is, but We'll find out.
Those kids are like gotta be getting old.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah, how long are they gonna keep this train a rolling?
I don't know.
Not too much longer. They can't really.
Well, I mean, no, they definitely. I mean, fucking Princess Leia was in a Star Wars after death. So I mean,
wow.
I don't think that there's any into the gravy train. Even if they have to like pass it on to like other kids or whatever, it's gonna keep going probably way too long. It's my suspicion.
We'll see. The only other thing I also watched that last Blockbuster documentary. It's a little sad, but also pretty feel good. It just like made me miss Blockbuster pretty hard. That shit, it's nostalgic.
Yeah.
What's the thing you rented way too many times at Blockbuster? I'm gonna pose this as the voicemail question too.
It's a good question. I don't know.
For me, it was Toy Story 2 for Nintendo 64. I almost beat that whole fucking game. And that is a really good game for a licensed Disney video game of the time.
I don't remember renting the same thing over and over and over again.
No, I rented that. And then we also, as a family, would rent Clue over and over and over again before we ended up.
I don't remember.
I remember I rented Hatchet twice. I watched it by myself and loved it, and then like a week later, I rented it because I had to like make Mike watch it, and I was like, "Dude, watch this fucking movie."
I remember you saying that to me too. He's like, "You gotta watch this," and then like I didn't, and then like a year later, you were like, "It's okay," or something like that. You were like a notably different tone about it, and I was like, "What were you trying to like fuck with me?" It's like, what's happening?
I remember, man. That's how I used to binge. I got into a lot of shows. I remember Breaking Bad. I watched Breaking Bad from Blockbuster. I would go rent the individual disc. Mad Men, 30 Rock. I just like burned through all of those shows. Maybe Parks and Rec, The Office. Mm-hmm. I started watching The Office from Blockbuster. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is.
That is crazy.
I never did that. Never rented the.
Yeah, you had the crazy deal where it was like, unlimited, 2 at a time or some shit.
Yeah, like right before they closed. Yeah.
Yeah, solid.
That was a good deal, and then they could do that without the disc part, and it was like,
I can just stream this shit.
Yeah, solid Hotline Scream prompt there. What did you rent from Blockbuster? Like, what was your repeat rental, or if you have just any other random Blockbuster related story, let us know. Did you used to work there? What was it like working there?
Does busting make you feel good? Explain how.
Does busting make you feel good?
I'll be stroking.
So yeah, speaking of hotline prompts, let's go ahead and jump over to our Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave us a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails this week. I believe first up, we're going to hear from Miles. Let's hear what he has to say.
What's going on, guys? It's Miles. I actually forgot to call in last week. I think it was Soji who asked me why I picked The Howling 2. It's a nostalgic movie for me. When I was really young, werewolves were my favorite monster. So any werewolf movie, I would watch, no matter how terrible it was. And yeah, the Howling is one of the few werewolf movies with sequels. It's one of the few that's actually a franchise. So yeah, that would be my Friday nights in 4th or 5th grade, going to Blockbuster, renting a Howling movie, and then watching it at my grandma's house. And I didn't pick the first Howling because I feel like you guys will get to that one eventually. That's a classic. I don't see how you guys won't review that one eventually. I didn't see you guys getting to any of the sequels, so that's why I picked the second one. It is probably one of the wackiest ones. I know you had a call last week that was saying 3 is about as wacky, if not wackier. It's been a while since I've seen it, but probably. I know they have the same director, so yeah. But yeah, that's why I picked 2 for the goofiness factor and just the fact that I figured you guys would get to 1 eventually. But yeah, no, I saw pretty much every werewolf movie, the entire Howling series, American Werewolf in London, and its sequel. A lot of people don't know American Werewolf in London had a sequel, American Werewolf in Paris, Project Metal Beast. Yeah, so there's a lot of terrible movies I could have picked for you guys to watch, but I'm glad you guys had fun with it. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Talk to you guys later.
Cool. Thanks, Miles.
Thanks, Miles.
I did pick up a copy of The Howling 3. I hadn't finished watching it. I watched about 30 minutes of it today. I was enjoying it quite a bit, actually. It is very silly, very dumb, but I'll finish watching that this week, and I can report back fully next week.
I think we're kind of all glossing the fact that 4th and 5th grade Miles was watching one of the most Yabo-laden films that we've reviewed.
That's true. At his grandma's house.
Grandma's house. Grandma was hip.
Yeah. I like the context, at least, because I was curious. We happened to see American Werewolf in London on last night, and we were talking about watching American Werewolf in Paris, which I've never seen. So yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, sweet deal.
Never seen Paris. Heard it's terrible, but
a well-reasoned response for why Howling.
Yeah,
I appreciate that
for sure. Next up, we are going to hear from Chris.
Hey, Straight Chillin' crew. This is Chris from Phoenix again. So I saw that the baby was being talked about, that was the next episode. Listened to the episode, or I watched the baby, which I do, for movies that I haven't heard of before, that you guys cover. I try to watch them, and then I listen to the episode. So I hadn't heard of it before, watched it, listened to the episode, and then after my voicemail last week, and then you guys had asked for an opinion on the baby, being in this profession. So rest assured, I think you guys were spot on as far as, just the film not really having anything to say. I think overall it was maybe not intended to be exploitative, but I mean, that's the way it really felt. So one thing that you guys did touch on in the episode when you were talking about the baby, though, that I think that you were spot on about was, I can't remember who was talking about it, but at that time in the 70s, with behavioral health the way that it was, it really was a lot different. And you guys talked about the Cropsey documentary, and if I remember correctly, the hospital that was showcased, that was talked about in the Cropsey documentary, was called Willowbrook. And Willowbrook is kind of a big deal for people that are in this field. And in case you don't know, Willowbrook was a mental hospital in New York. Back then, people, they wouldn't know how to identify or treat mental illness really well, so they would just, like, a lot of family members and stuff, they would just be shunned away to these places and locked up, and then, parents and siblings, they wouldn't visit them. And then Geraldo Rivera, before he became a bloviated political figure on TV, he did an expose early in his career. He did an expose on a hospital, Willowbrook, and showed really deplorable conditions. A lot of people just in the dark. I mean, hundreds of patients just in the dark, covered in their own filth, hungry, cold. And then I think that when the hospitals got emptied out en masse, I think it was a knee-jerk legislative act, just because everybody was really so horrified about, what these places were doing. So I think that the product of that would be movies like Baby, where, people saw the expose and they didn't really, a lot of unknown, like they were just coming up with these like grandiose and really extreme scenarios pertaining to, mental health.
And Chris's time got spent right there, but that was a good 3 minutes.
That was interesting. Very interesting. I'm glad he called.
Have you guys seen any of that footage from Willowbrook?
I haven't, but I want to look it up now. And I assume
sad.
Be prepared, because it's extremely graphic and sad.
Going in. But that is very, very interesting. I force myself, like, I know when things, but when they're real and they affect, like, even things today, I think it's important to force yourself to do it. I mean, because it's otherwise,
context, especially like because we were so kind of like trying to figure out that movie. I think that it's good to hear from somebody who's, you know, involved with behavioral health, just to sort of set the record straight on that a little bit, at least.
Yeah, because we thought we were being pieces of shit.
I mean, I was just worried that maybe we were missing some vital key that unlocks why this isn't horrible.
Yeah, why a lot of people seem to like it.
I feel validated, and that's really
we missed it.
That's really the main thing.
We're awesome.
Thing.
Yeah, we really killed it.
I'm not even going to ask for validation anymore. I'm just going to assume it's given. Thank you, Chris. That was really, really good. And, you know, please keep calling back, dropping those kind of nuggets on us. It's really, really good for us to hear from people with those sorts of credentials, and just keep us from being too blowhardy ourselves. Speaking of bloviating, Jesus.
Yeah. Thanks for dropping some knowledge on us, Chris. Feel free to do so frequently. Last but not least, we are going to hear from Michael. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, what's up, guys? Michael from Horror Apocalypse here. Wanted to call. I just finished your baby episode. I actually stopped probably about a minute before it ended because I needed to call and get some stuff off my chest. First off, stay very, very, very far away from Howling 3, The Marsupials. You know I like bad movies. I had a friend who 20 plus years ago, when I was writing movie reviews for my website and everything at that point in time, recommended Howling the Marsupials and said that he would never watch it ever again, but he wanted. So I kind of forced him to watch it with me, and probably about a year later, he committed suicide, just trying to make light of a very serious situation. But he recommended that movie. It's always going to have a special place in my heart because of him, but it is a very, very horrible, horrible movie. I do not recommend it to anyone else. It's really bad. The other thing, I completely forgot what I was going to talk to Daddy King Bob about, but I guess I just wanted to call and give you guys that information. Then if I remember, I'll call again next week. I know the one call per person rule, so I'll try to limit it to next week. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for everything you do. You're fantastic. I appreciate all of you. Zippity zappity and hell yeet and eat mesquite. So thanks, guys. Have a great one.
He got us all. Look at that.
Yeah, wow. Bob, your catchphrase is catching on too.
Totally. Mine. My catchphrase.
That took a heavy turn there for a minute. Thanks for sharing, Michael. That's
Michael.
Sorry,
no joke. And
sorry about your friend. That's super sad. But
but thank you for letting us know the dangers of Howling 3 with such virulence.
I mean, I've already started it in like
Bob's in there.
So for Michael to say that this is a bad movie that he does not want to watch blows my mind.
That carries
Knowing
weight.
The shit that he has made us watch in the 30 minutes that I've seen of this movie is like already better than anything that he has made us watch.
Oh, Michael didn't get a spot either, did he?
No, he
missed out. Next time.
Yeah, as it just so happens, someone who knows Bob closely got one. So
there's no insider trading.
We're looking into foul play as we speak.
I would not.
We know you've been stupping Hydraberg, Rob. Get over yourself. Right?
It just so happens I saw Rob get way too tore up last night and get whisked away quickly. Pumped
I Hydraberg to the daddy lair.
I have a daddy kink.
Yes, we know, Rob. Jesus
Listen
Christ.
to my kinks. Yeah, Michael, figure out what else you were going to say to old Daddy King Bob, and then call back and let us know. Yeah, I'll finish up Howling 3, and we'll talk about it more next week. I'm kind of excited now. There's a lot of hype around it. Ooh, let's see what happens.
Around here, that means big money.
Huge money. Again, if you guys are listening, want to call and leave a voicemail, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Share your blockbuster stories with us. We want to know if bustin' makes you feel good.
Did you steal anything from Blockbuster when they went out of business? I did.
I didn't.
And by steal, I mean, did you rent something and then they went out of business and you just kept it knowing that there's no way that they could?
Thought you're just like picking shelves apart.
I did. I actually, the guy in the documentary, he was smart and did games. I had some shows and movies that I did. I had them. I might still have them up in the attic where it still has the Blockbuster.
Nice.
Be kind, rewind, man.
Yeah, I mean they were DVDs.
Rewind that DVD, buddy.
Be kind, rewind.
They were steel books, but I mean,
totally.
They weren't baby blues, so who gives a shit?
Totally. Titanium books.
How was the transfer? It was dog shit.
I mean, they're just steel,
Mm-hmm. That is going to do it for us this week at Straight Chilling. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. We're going to be talking about a new release next week. Finally going to be watching Godzilla vs. Kong, which is exciting. I'm excited to watch it. It's going straight to HBO Max as well as limited theatrical release. So slam your eyeballs into that.
Are we doing the double feature with the Snyder Cut?
Oh God,
that's a double feature.
Yeah, talking about long movies, fucking 4 hours for that thing. I don't know that I have the patience. It's
straight to HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, it's amazing what people can accomplish by complaining really loudly.
Yeah, let that be a lesson to all of you.
Just complain.
Yes, yeah. Complain to us constantly is what Justin wants.
That's what we need. That's what we need.
Bob will take care of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for gatekeeping, Bob. You're apprecited.
Real trooper, Bob.
Daddy King Bob's on the case. Don't worry about it. Godzilla vs. Kong next week. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Hit us up on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, let us know on one of those social media outlets. I'll send you a link so you can join in. Until next week, don't forget to keep chilling.
Arrivederci, baby.